Hey, remember that 2015 classic, The Final Girls, and when then they did the
oh right, the
and then the
during the
and at that time the
after the
Okay, boys, take a back seat. Quinn's gonna drive. I got a story to tell you.
Scream for your life! To a new world of gods and monsters.
Camp Bloodbath is the granddaddy of all campsite slasher films. Max's mom plays Nancy, this shy girl next door.
Nice legs. What time they open?
It's cool you get to remember your mom this way.
At least I get to see her on the anniversary of her death, even if she is being chased by a psycho.
So, we're in the movie.
Oh, hi. What's your name? Max. Best summer ever! How do we get out of here?
Movies like this end when the final girl kills the bad guy and the credits roll.
That's home. That's the final girl. We just have to stay with her till the end of the movie.
Oops.
I want to know where they keep the hardware. I want chainsaws and big ass knives, and I want them now.
Hey, psychos, it's showtime. Welcome to Scarifyer. Today we are talking about the direct-to-DVD cult classic 2015's The Final Girls. I am the Ace.
I'm the Gov.
And I'm Quinn.
And Quinn, you are driving the ship today.
I am, so buckle up. It's going to get really interesting.
So in honor of the topic of today, which is The Final Girls, today's Scarify, let's go for it. Top 5 Final Girls.
Okay, so for number 5, I have Alice Hardy from Friday the 13th. Just because she's a little bit different of a character, she's not the typical, almost like badass. You can tell that she's timid, but she still pushes through. That's awesome. Number 4 is Julie James from I Know What You Did Last Summer. Just because,
Really?
yeah, just because you can tell like halfway through the film, she's like, enough is enough, fuck this.
You did not listen to our I Know What You Did Last Summer podcast, did you?
Probably not. You guys put me to sleep.
I recommend it.
Sure you do. Moving on. Number 3, I have Nancy Thompson from Nightmare on Elm Street because she kind of goes against the stereotype, which I like. Number 2 is Laurie Strode from Halloween. She's one of the originals. And then number 1 is Sidney Prescott from Scream because she's another one that almost turns the table on her attacker and plays the game differently.
I can't argue with that, number 1.
No, that's a good one. I'm solid with that one.
Gov, go ahead.
All right, number 5 for my final girls, Jessie Walsh, played by Mark Patton in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, because the fundamental of being a final girl is being a victim. Number 4, Sally Hardesty from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, played
Nice.
by Marilyn Burns. In my opinion, the original final girl.
I have, I'm going to debate you on that, but good choice.
Number 3, everyone's favorite victim, Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell, because my God, this girl just cannot catch a break 4 movies later. Number 2, the queen herself, Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. She has that title for a reason.
Very nice.
And number 1, Nancy Thompson, played by Heather Langenkamp. Your villain is only as good as your hero.
I can't argue with that much, but I'm going to argue the original Scream Queen title with my first 2. Number 5, Evelyn Ankers, Gwen from The Wolfman.
Wow, you're going way back.
Wow.
She is the original.
Okay, all right.
Then I'm going to go with the next one. Number 4, Julie Adams. creature from the Black Lagoon.
All right, we're
That hurt
reaching.
me.
We're reaching.
So, hey, they're the final girls. I mean, the slasher genre hadn't been created yet, but they are final girls. Number 3, I'm going Neve Campbell, Cindy Prescott.
You gained a little more respect from me on that one.
A little more respect.
Yeah, a little bit.
So, hey, it's Scream. They changed the genre, redefined the final girl. I dig it. Number 2, I'm going Ashley Lawrence, Kirsty from Hellraiser.
Ooh, that's
Wow.
different.
She was not the typical final girl. She drank. She clearly had a sex life.
Uh-huh.
But yet she takes out the demon Pinhead.
Right.
And number 1, I got to go with the top, the queen, Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode.
We all saw that coming.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a Halloween guy, but she I mean, if you really want to give the OG title, you know, the formula, it's her. Good Scarifyer, guys.
Well, I guess we didn't specify that it had to be slasher final girls, so
No. Next time, specify the rules.
All right, now it's time to get into that production backstory on The Final Girls. Originally picked up by New Line Cinema, the script was put into rotation before being picked up by Sony Pictures in 2014. The film had its premiere on March 13th, 2015, with a limited release theatrically in October. It received generally positive reviews from critics praising the performances, the atmosphere, and the directing. The Final Girls was produced for $4.5 million. However, due to its limited theatrical run, the domestic box office grosses have not been recorded. This is an interesting film that we're looking at today, and it's actually one of the first sort of small indie films we've looked at probably since our first episode with Terrifier.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different from us, and to be fair, the whole reason why we're looking at this film is because Quinn brought it to our attention. So let me ask you, what makes this movie so important that we had to look at it for this show?
The thing I like about this film is it breaks down a lot of your 80s stereotypes and kind of plays with it a little bit. What happens if reality and fiction slammed into each other and you had to battle it? That's why I like it.
Yeah, you kind of go with the meta thing, almost like with New Nightmare.
Exactly. So the plot of this film is a teenage girl is dealing with the death of her mother, who was a 80s slasher scream queen. On the 3rd anniversary of her mother's death, her and her friends go to a viewing that she's asked to be a part of to make a debut. There's a fire that breaks out in the theater, and they all get sucked into the movie that her mom stars in that they now have to survive.
They have to survive Camp Bloodbath. I mean, it's a very solid concept, I think. It's something that hasn't really been touched upon. It's kind of like it is kind of that meta movie within a movie take on it. It deals a lot with fan culture, which is why I think a lot of slasher fans would gravitate to something like this, because it has a very unique approach to it. It dabbles on that also satirical kind of Scream level to it.
Sure. Definitely one of the things I did enjoy and appreciate about this movie is they took old and made it new, and gave a fresh spin on the slasher genre. It was interesting. It was a very interesting, very unique concept.
Which means I didn't like it at all. And when somebody says interesting, means I
No. I mean, my issues with this movie, and we'll get into them in a second, basically comes down to execution of this movie. Not so much the concept, the story. The cinematography was absolutely great. I mean, this was shot incredibly. Especially like when they transport into the movie and they have to step over credits.
Exactly.
I mean, that was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So before I get into too much what I don't like about the movie, Quinn, let's go to our next plot point or our next topic. Let's work into this.
One thing that I do want to bring up that is very powerful for me personally about the film is there's the mother-daughter plot, which reflects the writer Joshua Miller. He actually wrote it for his dad, Jason Miller, from The Exorcist, who passed away, and it was literally just therapeutically writing out how to cope with that. And then he looked at it and went, oh my gosh, this could actually be a thing. So it was almost like a coping mechanism for the loss of his father. And if you watch the film, you can see it. Everything. The letting go, having to move on, that whole thing. And the blend of that and horror is just perfect.
Yeah, I had that in my notes too. That's a really fantastic point. You know, for those of you who don't know, Jason Miller is The Exorcist's father, Clarice. He had just passed away when Josh Miller wrote this. So yeah, no. Very cool.
It makes the movie heavier, in my opinion. It makes it much more than just kind of a horror comedy that it's trying to be. It gives it a lot of weight. It gives it a lot of emotion. Yeah, and we like Jason Miller on this show. You can click to our Exorcist episode to learn that out.
Yeah, I also found out that his half-brother is the older brother, Mike, from Lost Boys, too.
Oh, really?
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So all right, so we'll get into one of my first major issues with this movie. It has an identity crisis.
Really?
What?
Yes. 1 second it's a mother-daughter drama. The next second it's a horror movie. The next second it's a comedy. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. Not that they don't execute each thing well. It doesn't blend in as a full movie properly. I don't feel.
See,
I don't think it blends together.
It's almost like a horror comedy if you think about it. Yeah, there are some sad points. I mean, they originally were going to have Max, your head girl, completely suicidal throughout the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And they dropped that, which, thank God. Otherwise, I would completely agree with you. It's trying to be dramatic, and it's trying to be funny, and it's trying to be a horror film. I don't really see the drama. I mean, every movie you have your beginning, you have your middle, you have your, oh no, so sad, and then you have your end. Every single movie. So that whole drama aspect is your downplay of, oh no, so sad. Also, again, I'm just going to circle back to it. That was Josh Miller's coping mechanism. That was him working through it in a horror film. Also, what was it? It was New Line that wanted to drop the whole mother-daughter thing completely because they were like, this is ridiculous. This is pointless. It's sad that it's personal for you, but let's just focus on the horror aspect of it. And then when he said absolutely not, we got to keep that in there. Sony went, you know what? Let's hold on to it. It works.
Okay, I'm not knocking Joshua Miller's writing as a coping mechanism. He obviously wrote a great story. I'm saying finished product, the movie we got, doesn't do a good enough job blending the story together. 1 second you have a mother-daughter drama, and then it's instantly a comedy. And then it's trying to be a slasher movie, and to me, it didn't blend well. It seemed like random scenes thrown together to try to be coherent.
Yeah, but I feel like that was the point. And I'm going to back that up with an actual quote from the director, Todd Strauss-Schulson. I don't know if I'm saying his last name right, but...
Sorry if it's wrong.
Yeah. Said, when describing the genre of the film, he said, it's Pleasantville in a trashy horror movie from the 80s with a little Back to the Future thrown in and a spoonful of terms of endearment with a dash of Scream and 2 dollops of Purple Rose of Cairo for good measure. That was on purpose. If you're talking about the tone, about how they can't decide where they want to go, they purposely blended genres.
Okay, all right, then let's get into my biggest bitch about this movie. All right. If you're going to do a slasher movie, why not go full-blown slasher? I get the other elements. All right. This movie had a very limited theatrical release. It's primarily a direct-to-download, direct-to-DVD, correct? Primarily.
Yes.
It had a very small... All right. So you're not giving this to mass audience, so you're not attracting the teenage audience. to make your money back. Why is this movie PG-13?
There
Why is this? Why in the slasher elements of this movie? Why aren't they just going for it?
They originally wanted a R rating, and originally when Joshua Miller wrote it, it was much more graphic. It was more gory. Because if you think about the movie, there's not really that much blood in it. You see a little bit of splatter, but that's it.
Yeah, you get a little bit of digital blood, which is our favorite.
Exactly. He originally wanted it to be like your typical slasher film, and they said, no, let's tone it down a little bit. That way, parents aren't keeping it from their children. That way you get more of an audience. That's what they were trying to do. Understandably so, it wasn't a huge theatrical release, but they were trying to grab more people that they could, as opposed to an R rating that you have to wait until you're 17 years or older.
But
So your
I don't think
14-year-olds
I don't
can
think
see it.
that matters if it's a direct-to-DVD release.
But they were focusing more on the theatrical release as opposed to the direct-to-DVD because they're honing in on that theatrical because they wanted to make a big boom with it.
Because here's the thing. I think this movie I would appreciate it a lot more if they took the satire of the slasher movie and just went full-blown slasher with it. And you can make a satirical slasher movie. Scream. Shaun of the Dead. You can make a funny, gory horror movie. And I think that's really what lacked in this. It was too goofy.
I'm going to placate both sides. The PG-13 rating absolutely hurts this film.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that. It does.
Yeah, it absolutely hurts this film. However, you can tell it was a studio decision because there is more to this film than just a slasher. There is a lot of levels to this film, a lot of depth that they try to institute with the mere fact of, at its core, it's about a girl who lost their mother.
So is Scream. Throughout the entire movie in Scream, Neve Campbell is dealing with the loss of her mother.
No, I get that, but like...
Well, my point being is not how the characters were written. My point is just because you have a strong emotional mother-daughter story, why can't you go gore?
But
why can't you get
Because they're
brutal?
catering to a age group.
But here's the thing.
But that makes no sense if it's going direct to DVD.
You didn't know that, though. I think they were aiming for a big theatrical release with this.
That was the whole thing. The theatrical release was a test. Let's do it only let's say in 500 theaters. Let's see how it does. If it makes a humongous splash, then we'll expand and we'll go further. Another 500 theaters.
You don't get a studio like Sony Pictures to back a film that script has been in rotation for numerous years unless they intended to put something to it. I think Quinn's right. I think that it tested and they were like, you know what? This will do better direct to video, direct to stream, and we'll give it a very limited theatrical run. I think it was a decision in the end.
It was almost like a guinea pig type idea.
Let's
see what this can do.
Yeah, because you don't have the lack of star power with the cast either. Yeah, they're not huge names, but they're recognizable faces from television and films. You know what I mean? So I think there was an attempt to make this a theatrical release, and they wanted to get as many people in the theater as possible. And then when you talk about comparing it to Scream, the whole mother and daughter relationship is tainted in Scream. It's not in this. You actually, meet the mother. You don't meet Sydney's mother in Scream, and then Noreen. And then when you do, you find out that she's this horrible person. You know what I mean? And
you don't really have sympathy for her because she's effectively a homewrecker.
Yeah.
As opposed to this movie where you feel kind of bad and you actually see her die in this movie quite a few times. Mm-hmm. So you have that emotional connection. You have that sadness. Also, you see Max in the actual grieving process. Like she's pulled back and she's not really interacting with anybody. Sydney, you can kind of tell she was a little bit sad, but she was still moving on with her life.
Okay, I'm not arguing the differences in plot and why they were written the way they were written. I'm arguing that you're satiring the slasher genre and you're not giving the slasher genre. Listen, I'm not, and not to sound misogynistic about this stuff.
Uh-oh.
But what is the slasher genre? What is the 80s slasher genre? What is this movie trying to portray? It's 1986 in the movie. All right. What is the 80s slasher, guys? Tits and blood. And again, not to sound misogynistic about it, but that's it. All right. So you're doing a satire on that genre, and you're not actually doing that genre.
But then that goes straight back to the point of it was trying to do three things at once. So it can't really make a big boom over here when you're trying to also focus on two different things here. So if you're going to do a blend, you have to have a compromise.
Or you
It's
can
not a highway and a bike path.
Or you can do each section right. I mean, you hit.
If they had a bigger budget, I could agree with you.
You hit it strong with, very well with the mother-daughter. Yeah, I mean the scenes with the two leads were incredibly emotional and incredibly effective.
I'll never listen to Betty Davis Eyes the same way again.
I know, I cry.
The comedy aspect, I thought Adam Devine was the most annoying fucking character.
Oh, just wait.
Time out. We'll get there.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying. I mean, I can understand why the millennial generation would like that sense of humor. He was the most annoying person I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
However, but they do get the laughs with the horror geek. So they do that all right. So they go all in on the comedy and the drama. Why not go all in on the horror?
Because it's PG-13, and you
Which
want
is
your
my
12-year-olds to watch it. So if they redid it as an R rating, I 100% agree with you. Turn up the gore factor, turn up the nudity. I like a good boob just like the next guy. But this is a PG-13 rating. This is something that you want your
listen, don't tell me about boobs in PG-13. We all saw Titanic.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Titanic.
So
he's got you there, Quinn.
But more than that, I mean, the blood part, the horror aspect of it, the nudity, whatever, that almost takes a back seat. I'm talking horror wise, the scares, the jump scares, the blood, the gore. If they missed it completely on the slasher aspect of it,
Right.
completely.
Right. But that just wasn't what Sony was wanting to focus on.
They wanted to play to a wider audience.
That's the only thing. If they redid it with a bigger budget and they wanted to do the R rating, if you can find a studio that would back it, 100%. I totally agree. Just that was not the option for this.
Then let me ask this question. So we know that they wanted a broader audience.
Yeah.
Playing Monday morning quarterback. Had they not tried to go for the broader audience with the PG-13 rating, would more of a traditional slasher aspect in those parts of the movie benefited the movie?
You mean if they redid it as a intended R rating?
Or if it was originally made with a more traditional slasher aspect to it, I think it would improve this movie immensely.
I would really like to see what Joshua Miller had originally written, because he did write it as a traditional 80s slasher film. I would love to see what he did.
That's my point. I'm not arguing why the studio did it. I'm not arguing the character content. I'm saying what would make this movie better. I think an R rating with a more traditional 80s slasher feel to it, with gore. I mean, again, 80s horror. It's tits and blood. All right.
That also requires a bigger budget.
Not necessarily. How much does it take to do some blood effects?
I'm sure probably more than we are aware of.
I don't know. You decapitated the guy at the end of the movie. How much would it have been to put a blood hose in there?
I honestly think all their money went to music publishing to get Betty Davis Eyes.
No kidding.
So are you saying, Ace, that the only thing that doesn't make this a slasher is that it's not bloody enough or there's not tits enough? Because the homages and the nods to
the names of the characters, for God's sake.
Yeah, they're all over this movie. It is a fundamental slasher film without the things that make it an R rating. I mean, just to go over a couple.
You have the name Tina in there. You have the name Nancy in there. Those are nods to it.
Nightmare on Elm Street, the two main characters.
Exactly.
The entire concept of Camp Bloodbath is Friday the 13th.
Exactly.
Even down to
the mask.
The mask. I called
the machete.
Yeah, the machete definitely.
The Eugene Levy mask.
The Eugene Levy mask. I called him Frogface. Down
the way he walks, the way he dresses.
His version of Kill Mama.
The grabbing the hiker by the head and squeezing him.
Exactly. And then you got the characters who are mirror images of an 80s slasher film. That's what I found really interesting because I watched it last night, is that the contemporary real-life characters, the ones that get sucked into the movie, are mirror images of those characters in the movie.
Exactly.
You have those stereotypes with both sets of characters. You have the final girls. You have the mean girl. You have the nerd with suspenders and the buttons. You have the good-looking guy who's supposed to be a hero, but he's a little bit full of himself. And there's a reason why there's that part in the movie where they're trying to keep track of their movie counterparts, and they get paired up with what they are, their mirror images. Cleverly done.
Again, I haven't said that it wasn't written well. I'm saying it was executed poorly. The parts of the movie where it's supposed to be scary are not scary.
It wasn't supposed to be overly scary.
It's supposed to be. It is though. It's a horror movie. It's a horror comedy.
It's a horror comedy for under 17. If it was supposed to be an R rating, then it would be. It really could be something.
We're going around in circles with this. Who the movie is for. They clearly wanted to go for a younger audience. They almost took Scream and said, what if we made Scream PG-13? You know how much bigger it would have been?
Exactly. Because then your 11, 12, 13-year-olds could go see it. Mm-hmm. And no parent would have an issue with it because it's not an R rating.
Right.
That was an ordeal.
I kind of wanted to dabble in a little bit more about the 80s stereotypes and what your guys' thoughts were on that. What you guys picked up on, what you liked, what you didn't like. Go.
Well, as far as making caricatures of the 80s stereotypes, they did a phenomenal job. The characters in the movie, it's the comedy aspect of it. They're a complete spoof of what these characters were in the 80s as they were portrayed.
Exactly.
Good job.
I thought it was funny. I thought it was clever. I thought they turned the stereotypes on their heads a little bit and kind of pointed fun at them in the best way possible. Another thing that sticks out in my mind is you have, in the beginning, everyone's figuring out that they are in the movie, and you have I kept calling, what was his name? I kept calling him Randy, because that's who he was. The guy.
Oh, you're talking about Thomas Middleditch.
Yeah, and his character.
Uh-huh.
And he was... Duncan was going over all the rules and stuff like that, and then they see Billy Murphy, our killer, Frogface, for the first time, and he kills two hikers in the woods, and it's set up just like a Friday the 13th movie. You got the wandering drifter with the sleeping bag on his back, and then you got the hippie chick, and they're looking for the camp. He comes in, kills them, obviously set up to be like the first kills of the movies. What made me laugh is those two actors, clearly like 40 years old. Right. Just like in an 80s slasher film when everyone tried to play a teenager. Again, it's funny.
It's like Kevin Bacon did.
Exactly. Exactly. And that ass.
That ass.
That ass. That ass.
I kind of want to poke you a little bit, Gov. Let's talk about...
What are you talking about? I'm on your side this whole episode.
Just wait. Right. I'm trying to get you foaming at the mouth a little bit. Let's talk about Adam Devine for half a second.
Why?
Because I think it's going to be really funny and I want it to happen.
Okay. What do you want to know about him?
Isn't he great?
No.
Isn't he wonderful?
No.
I thought he was hilarious.
I think he's an asshole.
He was wonderful. I mean, come on. Kind of like a Jason Bateman type.
Exactly.
style.
Except, not talented and not funny. What the fuck is he doing in this movie?
Being Adam Devine.
Why? Why would you...
To attract the 13-year-old kids.
See?
I guess so. But they clearly miscasted him because he does not play the pseudo-stereotype character he is supposed to be. They even gave him fucking Johnny Depp's jersey from the first Nightmare on Elm Street.
But see, that's another 80s poke that they do.
With the crop top and stuff. I was fine with that. And he's supposed to be this... good-looking jock who makes it all the way to the end, except for he's probably like the last kill of the film. Mm-hmm. Turns out not to be the case for him. Here's the problem. Every character in this movie, if they were a character within the movie of Camp Bloodbath, they played their stereotypes to a T. They were perfect. They did it well, except for this douche nozzle, who was just doing the Adam Devine stick. His stupid face, his stupid voices. He does not act like he's a character from an 80s slasher flick at all.
He's Adam Devine in the 80s.
He is the character from the IT crowd at a camp.
He was terrible.
Wearing,
he was terrible.
Purple Calvin Klein's. I'm never gonna watch Back to the Future the same way again.
It was like, listen, it was like he got the script, and like Halloween Resurrection with Busta Rhymes. They said, you know what? Forget the script. Go be Busta Rhymes. They said, forget the script. Go be Adam Devine. And it was terrible.
That is something that they actually did do. They had a basic script, and they encouraged everybody to go off script
because it worked so well for Joe Piscopo in Dead Heat.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Don't talk to me about Episcopalian.
He was terrible.
It was bad. I'm not gonna lie. It was bad.
He was terrible.
Oh God.
The worst character, worst actor in this movie. I applauded when he died.
Oh God, the way he died was
really
good,
funny. Yeah, I liked that. Also, what's the other guy's name? You keep reminding me.
Duncan.
Yeah. No,
Thomas Middleditch.
The scene with him, the dick measuring scene with Thomas Middleditch and Adam Devine.
Oh God! At the end of the film,
like gave me explosive diarrhea. I hated it. Yeah. Like seriously, that's all they're doing is dick measuring because they walked on set and they were almost like, "No, I'm the funny one. No, I'm the funny one." And let's go on this ad lib tangent to prove how unfunny both of them are. The rest of the cast was great.
Yeah, I mean, other than that part, I didn't think.
Malin Ackerman, I thought, did a phenomenal job.
Amazing. I love her so much.
Phenomenal job in this movie.
It also makes it kind of weird to a certain degree that you can tell she's so much older than everybody.
Was anyone else?
But once you get into the film, you almost forget about that because she plays it so well.
She does. But was anyone else uncomfortable about the sex scene with her and Adam Devine?
Yeah.
Wow, was I uncomfortable?
Yeah.
It's like,
because even though she's supposed to be playing of age with him, she's not.
One thing I do kind of want to poke a little bit about the production of this film is the script was written, they step into a Technicolor world. The set designers took that so literally. That's why when you look at the forest, there's like bright flowers everywhere. When the rest of the crew came to the set, they were horrified because they're like, that is not what we meant. It's not supposed to be so bright and vibrant. They took it so literally that they fucked up the set completely. I think that's phenomenal for some reason.
Did I miss something? When did we get to Disneyland?
Yeah, right.
It's like a really weird Wizard of Oz trip.
That's how we laugh the day away in the merry old land of Oz.
Well, I mean, either way, I mean, they shot this movie beautifully. Even with the extreme colors. I mean, it was awesome.
Didn't really know what they were going for with the extreme colors. I mean, I guess you explained it, Quinn.
Yeah, it was just a fuck up, and they
miscommunication with the.
They couldn't fix it
with the art direction. Yeah, so they kind of just worked with what they got because at the end it kind of looked like Ghostbusters with the red clouds and the lightning and all these different colors. I was waiting for Gozer to come out, but Frogface did.
Right.
But the cinematography is breathtaking.
Yeah.
Loved the cinematography.
One of my favorite effects is when they do like the flashback scenes and you have the scene that's like melting as it's going into black and white.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
That's amazing to me. I love that.
I usually am not a champion of CGI, but some of the CGI in this was
really good.
Incredibly.
Exactly.
I'm not saying all. The melting scene, the credits. I thought brilliance. Having the characters have to step over the fucking credits.
The slow motion.
And the stolen joke from Johnny Dangerously about hitting the credits or whatever, knocking them over. But it's fun. The CGI, it's definitely hit or miss. Some of it helped the film.
What didn't you like?
Well, there are some effects that just absolutely hurt it. The big one is the first visual effects shot, which is the car crash. In the beginning, we establish that Amanda Cartwright, the actress who plays Nancy, is trying to get work She's down on her luck. This is where we meet her. We meet her daughter, Max, and they're driving home and they're having a good time listening to Betty Davis Eyes, and then she gets creamed by a car, and this is what kills the actress. That shot of the car, though, holy crap, was it terrible. Absolutely hurt the film. If you don't have enough money to render a shot like a car crash realistic enough, if you can't do it practically, figure out some other way to kill her.
So, I mean, unless what you would want to do is like see the car get hit in a tailspin and then cut to
Cut to black. Yeah, you don't need to see it. Yeah, you don't need to see it roll.
I can get behind that.
You could easily do that.
It's just to remind you, this is sad, this is sad, this is why this is sad.
Yeah, but you could have done it just as you perfectly described it. Have her get hit and cut to black.
Right.
3 years later.
Right. Ace, any thoughts?
I agree. The CGI was hit or miss. Billy being on fire was the fakest fire I'd ever seen in my life.
It's true.
At the end. I don't know.
Stimulating.
It made the kills look cheesy.
Bear trap.
Can we talk about my favorite kill in the movie?
That's my favorite character. Be
Tina
nice to her.
in
Tina
the
is my favorite.
Tina in the bear trap. My favorite kill, hands down, in this movie. She trips like an idiot and just face first into a closing bear trap. And everyone's reaction is priceless.
It was hilarious.
After that amazing striptease.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
The thing.
All right.
After she ate the Tic Tacs.
Yeah. Adderall.
All right. So here's my bitch about the striptease.
Oh god.
All right.
And
yeah, I know it's getting real.
This is a personal one to
Let's
Ace.
do this.
To Ace, because I'm a music guy.
Oh god.
All right. This movie is in 1986. Cherry Pie did not come out until 1990. And it's not like one of the more real guys, from, the future played it on their iPad or anything. Old school record and play She's My Cherry Pie.
Cassette player, yep.
No, it was vinyl.
Was it vinyl?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the needle.
It was.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, look. Maybe, if they played something from Hysteria, which was like a year after, I maybe would have given it a pass. Mm-hmm. But a movie that's almost 5 years after a song that's 5 years after the fact, come on, guys.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
How much research does it take? You could have found just as an exciting 80s hairpin song for the terrible striptease, drugged up on Tic Tacs.
Oh my god. Do you know what she did? The actress actually did to get ready for that scene? She pounded Monster energy drinks in less than 30 minutes to work herself up into a hype. So it's not supposed to be sexy. It's supposed to be her being absolutely fucking crazy and stupid.
I got
works.
I got that. My bitch is with the song that's 5 years after the fact.
Well, according to some people, 30 means 32. So
we love you, Joe Bob. You know what? I will touch on the music because I can't really argue with that. To put a 5 year later song in a 1986 movie. I also made note when they constantly do the repeat the beginning with the van driving up and they're playing Mickey. Okay, you cannot convince me otherwise. No 80s cheap 80s slasher flick would ever have the publishing rights for one of the world's biggest songs at the time.
No.
So that bothered me. It's the little things.
All right, so your bitch is that, a real slasher wouldn't have had the budget for that song.
Exactly.
You know what? There we go. Instead of getting the rights to fucking Mickey, they should have put that money into Blood.
Exactly. The music publishing alone.
Maybe they didn't have the budget for Blood. Well, there you go. They blew their budget on Mickey and Warrant.
And they wanted they wanted a Madonna song.
They did. They wanted a Madonna song. They wanted what was it? Like a Prayer. And she said, you can have any single song you want. You can't have that one. And then they moved to Belinda Carlisle's Heaven is a Place on Earth. And she said, absolutely not. and then they moved on to Betty Davis Eyes.
But all right, but isn't Like a Prayer? That was 90s too.
I know.
Wow.
I didn't say that it was
like,
smart.
That was like 91 or 92.
Some music supervisor on this movie needed to be fired.
Okay, so one of the things I did want to touch on is
She dies to like a version that would have been at least
Funny.
and
funny.
You know, time period acceptable, you know?
Yeah.
one of the things I did want to touch on was background atmosphere for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
One scene I'm thinking of in particularly is after Billy comes out of the cabin in slow motion and they're running through the woods.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell that it's kind of a play off of the Friday the 13th music.
Yeah.
Music. Cows are doing it now. But it was unique and it kind of had that like chill factor. I thought the background music in this was brilliant.
I thought it had a good score. I can agree with that. I thought the score was powerful at parts.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I mean, that they did get right. It was a, kind of a...
Eerie synthesized.
It was a dime a dozen slasher score.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell which one of you I want to thump on the head with this microphone.
What am I doing?
You're not helping.
Well,
you're just there.
I'm moderating
You're
this.
just there.
You're just getting mad because we're not in love with the movie like you are.
No, I'm
I
not
actually really like the movie.
Okay, see, there you go.
But
Ha
of course I'm going to criticize it. How about this? Is this movie an undiscovered gem? Did it not get its day in court?
I truly think that it didn't get the opportunity that it should have. I mean, even with the PG-13 rating, yes, I think it could have been much bigger if it was an R rating, if you had more of the slasher aspect. Completely agree. But I feel like they didn't have the backing behind it, almost like Sony didn't believe in the project enough to make it a wider spread of this movie. Also, they didn't have the promotion like other movies did.
That's for damn sure. When Quinn came to us with this idea about doing this movie on the show, I never heard of it. And then she explained it to me and pulled up the trailer. And I was dumbfounded that this movie slipped by me. And it completely slipped by me. This is the kind of movie that I would like seek out to watch and or review for the show. And I had no idea for 5 years it existed.
Me neither. I didn't. I knew nothing about it. Look, for genre nuts, it's definitely worth checking out. Is it a hidden gem? I personally don't think so. I think it's worth a good watch and a good critique, at least once. I would recommend it at least once if you're looking for something different. Is it a hidden gem? Debatable.
Another thing that I also wanted to put out there is the sad factor of the pending sequel.
Yeah.
It has been put a pause on it for a little bit. Basically, all that they have said is depends on the box office. Let's see what it does, and then we'll move forward with the sequel.
What box office?
Exactly. So it's been 5 years, and unfortunately, nothing has been said, not even such as like a sniffle in the direction of it, nothing. So unfortunately, I feel like that's not going to be an option. Your guys' thoughts? I mean, if they did, for some reason, pull out a sequel, what are your guys' thoughts? What would you want to see in a sequel? What would you expect of it?
Well, first off, I agree with you. 5 years later, and there's not a rumbling of any plans or any moving forwards. It's not going to happen. It's dead. It's dead in the water, unfortunately. In terms of what I would like to see in a sequel, I don't know. I don't think I would like to see a sequel. I think I would like to see this done again as a remake. I would make this movie the same exact way. I would keep the comedy in it. I would keep the underlying story about the girl and her mother because it's powerful and strong. I would keep the concept. I would just throw a little bit more money at it. And I would replace some actors, but I think other ones did it perfectly. So I don't even know about casting what I would change about that. I think before a sequel, I would like to see this given a proper treatment.
Almost like another shot.
Yeah, give it another go.
I'm going to stand with Gov on that. They knocked the drama out of the park. They did well on the comedy. They did well filming this thing. My only bitch is, what spawned the debate for the show was I'd amp up the horror. Amp up the horror aspect. Give us what an 80s slasher is. Because, you're going for an 80s slasher, give us an 80s slasher. Don't give us watered down 80s slasher for a 13-year-old audience.
Mm-hmm.
Give it to us. Go. If you're gonna, don't go 2/3 of the way in. Go all in. A sequel, not gonna happen. There was no box office, quite literally. So remake it if you can find strong enough actors or get actors to return. Give it another shot, but don't go 2/3 of the way. Go all the way.
That's my whole, thought on remakes in general. In this world where we're doing nothing but remaking the classics, the great films, why not give another shot at either a movie that was bad or one that was forgotten or buried? That's what we should be remaking. We shouldn't be remaking classics. We should be rediscovering these things, re-looking at these ones.
So I can kind of agree with both of you on that. I think that if they did a reboot, I would say make it bigger. Promotion is everything. This was very much a film that was word of mouth. And if nobody's talking about it, then no one knows about it. So if you do a reboot, I 100% agree with you guys. Amp up the horror aspect of it. Keep everything else. I like the cast. A few tweaks here and there, and I really do think if they did this, it really could be something. I like the original idea of it.
The concept of this movie was great, and I'll give that one its due. It took something not original and made it original.
Exactly. Which
I appreciate. You don't see much of that, especially in the horror genre nowadays.
Exactly.
Final thoughts are, it's decent. It's a fun movie to watch. I won't say that it's not. My personal taste, I wanted more horror. And to me, that's kind of what kills it. I have no problems with a horror comedy. I have no problems with putting a little more drama into a horror movie. But don't puss out on the horror. Give us some good scary moments to make it worth the time. I mean, even Ghostbusters has some terrifying moments. The library ghost, when it turns into the thing, you're watching that for a second, it scares the shit out of you. It's a huge jump scare. Give us some horror.
So would you say that there's too much comedy, not enough horror?
I'm saying it's not balanced.
Mm-hmm.
You knocked it out with the drama.
Mm-hmm.
Ackerman and what's her last name?
Thaisa Farmiga.
They knock it out of the park. They were the best part of this.
You actually believe that they're mother and daughter.
Yeah.
You do.
They are so good in this movie. So they knocked that out of the park. The satire and the comedy, other than Adam Devine just being an idiot,
mm-hmm.
it worked well. I appreciate it. I got into it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The horror takes me out of it because they lowballed you on the horror. I would just go all in with the horror next time. I would,
So would you say that you could probably say with that was not where their
That's
priority lied?
Yeah, that's not where their
with
focus
the horror.
was.
Yes.
For me, I think this was a very smart movie. I thought it was a very well done movie. You can watch this movie multiple times, and I'll say I've seen it twice. I enjoyed it better the second time. Because there's just so many great things to discover about it. Like, there's so many things that you don't realize on the first viewing. They're stuck in a 92-minute movie. The runtime itself for The Final Girls is 92 minutes. That's just clever.
Exactly.
That's just great writing. Where I will say it gets a little bit muddy are I feel like the rules of the movie within the movie are a little bit muddied. I feel like they make a lot of assumptions sometimes, especially when you get rid of the Duncan character. So you pretty much got rid of your Rulmeister, who understands this world over everybody else. You get rid of him pretty quickly, and then after that, everyone's just assuming they know what's going to happen or how it's going to work or what it means to have the final girl go up against the killer at the end. My question is, how do you know that you're going to go back to your own world if you do that? No one said they would.
Once again, it's an assumption. I have to agree with you there. You have to assume that it's done.
Exactly. Like, these characters are just making a lot of assumptions. You don't know if you can take the character Nancy back to the real world because she's a fictional character. You know, so you got Max, who's having a hard time letting her mother go, so she wants to take her mother's character back with her. How do you know that's going to work? You're just assuming it will.
I'm having a flashback to Fringe.
So I think the rules of the movies get a little muddy. I think but I understand, like, you can't focus on that your entire runtime. You have to keep it moving. Visually, it's a beautiful film, whether they went too far with the art direction or not. It's funny. I can sort of see what Ace is saying about the horror element got a little bit shafted, but I'm such a slasher nut that I just enjoyed the tropes that we were being thrown, even down to stuff like they're on a loop. They're running back, and they keep replay.
They can't leave.
They can't leave the scene until they play out the scene. That's straight up Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just the homages and the nods and stuff like that. You could just have a field day watching this movie on repeat and trying to discover all the Easter eggs.
My final thoughts, I enjoy this movie thoroughly. I'm kind of disappointed about, not having as much horror in it. But again, I'm going to kind of repeat what you just said, Gov. If you just watch the movie and you look for the Easter eggs, you have a bunch of nods. There's multiple people that were involved in this film that actually have connections to horror genre actors or writers, producers. Alex Ludwig has family that was in one of the Friday the 13th. It's enjoyable if you enjoy almost like a salute to the genre. That's kind of what this movie does for you in a fun, interesting way. I think it was beautifully filmed. I think the music is really good, despite its flaws. Overall, I just think it's a lot of fun.
I don't think they ever set out to be the next great slasher movie.
No, not at all.
Kind of like a Terrifier. Terrifier wants Art the Clown to be an icon, and he's on his way to being one.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And I never suggested that they did.
Mm-hmm.
I think you had three key components to this movie, and it lacks in one component, which to me disrupts the flow and feeling of the movie.
You can send Sony a very angry letter to let them know that you were disappointed in them.
So that's the final thoughts on the final girls. So what's left but those ratings?
All right. Well, I will say that this movie, it got nominated for some awards. So in 2015, 2016, the Stanley Film Fest, it wins for Best Feature Film. The Toronto International Film Festival, it's runner-up for People's Choice for Best Midnight Madness Movie. Mile High Horror Film Fest, the audience wins for Best Feature Film. So, I mean, it's on the Indie Award show circuit. It's not doing too bad. It gets nominated for a bunch of stuff at Fangoria's Chainsaw Awards for Best Limited Release, Best Screenplay, Best Supporting Actress. So, I mean, it got seen.
So we like it in the horror community.
So by the numbers, Internet Movie Database gives us a 6.6 out of 10. Rotten Tomato rated this a 72%. Metacritic gives it a 59 out of 100. Common Sense Media, 4 out of 5. And all the maniacs out in Google, 91% of them like this movie.
There you go.
So people like it. I just don't think it was what Sony was hoping for a box office success. So people like it. The studio just did not.
So, Gov, rank this movie. Out of 5.
All right, out of 5, I'm gonna give it a solid 4. I enjoyed it. I'm taking a point away for a couple things. I do think, Ace, you're right. The horror element did suffer a little bit, but they made up for it in so many other ways. Definitely taking a point away for Adam Devine. He can fucking suck on a tailgate for all I care. He just no.
The writing's so bad.
But it's a clever movie. It's a high concept satirical homage to a genre that does not get the notice, and I feel like the studio just didn't know what to do with it. It almost cancels its audience out, because you can't, market it to a slasher film, because it's not really a slasher film. You can't market it to the slasher freaks. It's not really for them. And if you market it as this comedic drama, people are going to be like, then what's with the slasher killer in a mask? We don't want to see that. So the movie kind of like has a Monster Squad element to it. It canceled its audience out. No one knew who this was for. But it is for an audience because everyone who sees it loves it, as the ratings and the community have spoken about it. I think it got shafted on budget and certainly on release, but I am very happy that I saw it, and I'll probably see it a few more times. 4.
Ace?
Like I've said from the beginning, this movie was clever. It had a great concept. The acting was phenomenal in certain, other than Adam Devine. It was original. It took old and made original. I appreciate that. My biggest argument is I think they just lacked on execution and flow of the story, mainly in the horror areas of this movie. So I would recommend it to a genre nut, for at least a one-time watch. I'll give it a 3. It wasn't bad.
Are you being generous?
I mean, it wasn't not fun to watch. All right, I'm not. But this is not a movie that I'm gonna put on rotation once a year or watch when I'm bored. It was all right. It was, so 3.
Fair enough. Quinn, this is your movie.
I'm going to give it a 4.5. Only reason why I'm taking away half is because we all agree Adam Devine is awful. We all hate him. We praised when he died. Again, I do agree. A little bit more of the horror aspect would have been amazing. But I do enjoy the movie. It's fun. It's well-paced. I love the thought of it. I like the originality of it. It's touching and it's funny. It's enjoyable. If you like the 80s slasher and you just want a nod to it, that's what's fun about this movie. It's not supposed to be over the top funny. It's not supposed to be over the top scary. It's a nod. That's what I like about it. Also, as you guys both pointed out, Hollywood isn't original anymore, but we got something original. So that's also something I really want to give praise to. So 4.5. But it's also interesting because if you think about it, the movie is kind of like your villain. It won't let you leave. You have to play by its rules, if you think about it.
All right, psychos, that's it. The Final Girls, the indie darling of Quinn's eye. So next time we're going to do something a little bit different. Change it up a little bit. We are going to do a watch-along of 1986 remake of The Fly, starring Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis. What does everybody think of that?
Well, yeah, you want to see a insect squirm, it'll be Quinn during this watch-along.
So get your DVDs, get your find it on your Amazons. Get ready to watch this one along with us.
I'm excited. We haven't done a watch along in almost a year. We've only done one of them, and that was for Frankenstein, the classic 31 film, and I'm excited to do one again.
It will definitely be a an interesting movie to watch with a lot of
Indeed.
strong opinions.
Yeah.
So, as always, don't forget to like, share, comment. We want to know what you want to hear us talk about. And as always,
See you next time on Scarifyer.
That ass. That ass.